There are moments in life when you stumble upon an idea so strange, so powerful, that it feels less like learning something new and more like remembering something ancient. Tonight, I'm going to share one of those ideas, one that has been whispered through temples, encoded in symbols and preserved in the secret doctrines of civilizations long vanished. Ask yourself this: why did ancient cultures from Egypt to India, from Greece to the Andes, all revere a tiny gland hidden deep in the human brain? A structure no larger than a grain of rice, yet depicted as the very seat of the soul, the gateway of gods, and the inner eye that sees beyond the world of form. How did they know? And more importantly, what did they believe this dormant organ was truly capable of? Modern science calls it the pineal gland. Ancient mystics called it a portal. In this video, we're going to explore the forgotten story of this mysterious gland, what the ancients knew about its hidden function, why they encoded its symbolism across their sacred architecture, and how this knowledge became buried beneath centuries of dogma, misinterpretation, and scientific reductionism. But we won't stop there. We'll uncover why philosophers like Plato and Descartes hinted at its occult significance, why Egyptian priests centered entire initiation rites around its awakening, why yogis designed breathing practices specifically to activate its inner radiance, and why secret societies protected its teachings as if guarding fire itself. We'll journey through the myths, the metaphors, and the metaphysics, revealing a picture far stranger, far deeper, and far more transformative than anything you were taught in school. Because the pineal gland isn't just a biological structure. To the ancients, it was a forgotten organ of perception, a radiant jewel within the mind capable of bridging the physical and spiritual worlds. If that sounds unbelievable, prepare yourself. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this knowledge faded from mainstream awareness, and why, now more than ever, humanity is beginning to remember what was lost. Take a deep breath. Quiet your mind. We're about to reopen a portal that has been closed for centuries. To understand what the ancients truly believed about the pineal gland, we must journey back through the dust-covered corridors of forgotten civilizations, places where spirituality was not a belief system but a science of consciousness, a time when the invisible realms were studied with the same seriousness as the physical world. Long before modern anatomy identified the pineal gland as a tiny endocrine gland, no larger than a grain of rice, ancient cultures revered it as a portal, a receiver, a cosmic lens capable of perceiving realities that today we dismiss as myth. The earliest known references appear in ancient Egypt, where the pineal gland was symbolized through one of the most iconic mystical emblems in history, the Eye of Horus. To the uninitiated, it was a symbol of protection, but to initiates of the mystery schools, it was a coded map of inner anatomy. The proportions, curves, and structures of the eye mirror the very layout of the pineal gland and its surrounding regions within the human brain. Egyptian priests believed this inner eye allowed adepts to access the duat, subtle realms between physical and spiritual existence. Meanwhile, in Vedic India, the pineal gland was linked to Ajna, the third eye chakra. Yogic texts describe it as the seat of intuition, higher perception, and inner sight. Unlike modern science, the sages of India didn't limit perception to sensory organs. They saw consciousness as multidimensional. The pineal gland, to them, was not an organ, but a gateway of awareness. Ancient Greek philosophers, too, recognized something extraordinary. Plato referred to a divine organ that could elevate the soul beyond material illusion. Later, in the Hellenistic world, mystical sects like the Orphics and Pythagoreans explored techniques, sound, breath, geometry, to activate what they believed was humanity's hidden inner sensorium. Centuries later, the philosopher Descartes famously called the pineal gland the seat of the soul. Though his claim was ridiculed by academics, his writings reveal that he was merely echoing a much older tradition, one that he had encountered through esoteric texts hidden behind religious and philosophical schools of his era. But perhaps the most intriguing evidence of ancient pineal knowledge comes from cultures that had no contact with each other: Maya, Taoists, and various indigenous groups, yet all described a central light point within the brain that acted as a bridge between worlds. How did so many civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, arrive at the same symbol? Because they weren't studying anatomy. They were studying consciousness. To them, the pineal gland was not relevant because of its physical role. It was relevant because of its metaphysical one. So why did this knowledge vanish? Why does modern science ignore what ancient wisdom emphasized so strongly? Part of the answer lies in shifting worldviews. As societies became more materialistic, spiritual anatomy was dismissed as superstition. As political and religious powers gained control, inner liberation, especially through self-discovered spiritual experiences, became a threat. In many eras, knowledge of inner sight was suppressed, demonized, or wrapped in secrecy to protect it from misunderstanding. What remains today are fragments, symbols, myths, metaphors, scattered across cultures like clues to a truth the ancients held sacred. But when placed together, these clues reveal something breathtaking. The pineal gland was never just an organ. It was humanity's forgotten portal to higher consciousness. To understand what the ancients truly knew about the pineal gland, we have to temporarily forget everything we've been taught. Modern science describes it as a small endocrine gland, no larger than a grain of rice, responsible for regulating sleep, circadian rhythms, and the secretion of melatonin. But to ancient civilizations, the pineal gland was not merely a physical organ. It was a portal, a lens, a receiver, and in some traditions, the seat of the soul. Imagine this: a tiny crystalline structure hidden deep within the brain, positioned exactly at the center of your skull, like the keystone of a sacred temple. Even today, under a microscope, the pineal gland reveals tiny microcrystals with properties similar to quartz. To the ancients, crystals were not inert matter. They were conduits, antennas, bridges between the material and immaterial worlds. And this is where the mystery begins. 1. The inner stargate. Across multiple ancient cultures, we find references to a hidden eye, a gate, a lotus, or a fire within the human head. In Egypt, it was related to the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Horus, symbols depicting more than mythology. Their proportions mathematically match the anatomical structure of the pineal gland and its surrounding components. How could a civilization thousands of years old know this? Was it intuition, symbolic insight, or knowledge inherited from an older, forgotten epoch? Even today, the pineal gland is sensitive to light, magnetic fields, and possibly other forms of energy yet to be fully understood. To the ancients, this sensitivity meant something extraordinary. They believed the gland could perceive worlds within and beyond. 2. The organ of inner vision. In the East, yogic traditions described the Ajna chakra, or third eye, as a center of higher intuition, subtle perception, and expanded consciousness. The descriptions match the pineal gland's location precisely. They taught that through breath, meditation, and energy practices, one could activate this inner eye, allowing the practitioner to perceive subtle energies, gain deep insight, and awaken higher states of awareness. To them, the pineal gland was both a receiver and a transmitter, a receiver of inspiration, intuition, and inner visions, a transmitter of consciousness, intention, and spiritual energy. 3. The gateway of dreams, death, and mystical experience. In many ancient cultures, dreams were not random mental noise. They were journeys, messages, encounters. The pineal gland regulates dream states, but the ancients believed it did much more. They associated it with lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, prophetic visions, transcendent states reached by shamans and mystics. Some even believed that at the moment of death, the pineal gland releases a final burst of consciousness, guiding the soul into the next realm. We cannot say whether these beliefs are literal or symbolic, but the consistency across cultures is striking. 4. The hidden architecture of the brain. If you place ancient symbols side by side with modern brain anatomy, something astonishing happens. The Eye of Horus, the pine cone sculptures from Assyria and Rome, the lotus rising through the spine in Hindu tradition, even the caduceus used in Western medicine. All of them encode in symbolic form the shape, function, or metaphysical associations of the pineal gland. How did cultures separated by oceans and centuries arrive at the same image? Coincidence seems unlikely. Something deeper connects these threads. 5. Why this knowledge matters today. The ancients viewed the pineal gland not just as an organ, but as a capacity, the ability to perceive truth beyond illusion. To them, the greatest barrier was not the world, but the mind asleep within it. They believed the pineal gland awakens intuition, dissolves spiritual blindness, connects the individual to universal consciousness, restores inner vision, lost through material obsession. This belief sits at the heart of why the pineal gland was revered, protected, and encoded within sacred teachings. But if this is what the ancients knew, why did the knowledge disappear? What caused the world to forget or to ignore this inner portal? The answer lies in the hidden forces, cultural shifts, and philosophical battles that shaped modern civilization. And that is exactly what we will explore next. If Part 1 unveiled the symbolic and metaphysical significance of the pineal gland, Part 2 takes us deeper into the hidden layers the ancients encoded in myth, geometry, and mystical practice. This is where the pineal gland stops being merely an organ and becomes something far more enigmatic, a portal between worlds, a biological interface with the unseen. To understand this, we must examine not just what ancient cultures said, but how they framed their knowledge. 1. The pineal gland as a dimensional threshold. Across civilizations, the pineal gland was described as a kind of inner doorway. This wasn't poetic exaggeration. Ancient adepts viewed consciousness as existing on multiple layers: physical, subtle, spiritual, and cosmic. The pineal gland was believed to be the only organ capable of bridging these domains. In Egyptian theology, the Eye of Horus contains shapes identical to the pineal region. In Vedic philosophy, the Ajna chakra activates when awareness transcends material perception. In Taoist alchemy, the crystal palace refers to the pineal pituitary axis as a bridge between yin and yang energies. In early Christian mysticism, the single eye represents a mode of perception beyond duality. In all these systems, the pineal gland wasn't simply an inner sense. It was a transition point, a threshold, a silent corridor that consciousness travels through when it shifts states. 2. The secret of light within darkness. One of the most intriguing esoteric traditions suggests that the pineal gland is sensitive, not only to external light, but to internal light, subtle forms of luminosity generated during meditation, dreams, deep stillness, or mystical experience. The ancients believed that during states of profound inner focus, the pineal gland becomes illuminated from within, opening what many traditions call the hidden vision. This inner light appears everywhere in ancient teachings. The halo around saints, the radiant third eye in Eastern iconography, the flame of enlightenment in Buddhist art, the shining crown of the Persian magi, the luminous serpents of Mesoamerican sages. These images are not mere symbolism. They represent the moment the inner eye perceives light, not seen by the physical senses. 3. The pineal gland and the serpent archetype. Another astonishing commonality is the serpent. From Egyptian Uraeus serpents to the Kundalini serpent in India, to Mesoamerican feathered serpents, the symbol consistently points to a rising energy that awakens higher vision. Why a serpent? Because serpents move in waves, just like electromagnetic energy, just like brain waves. Just like the vibrational shifts the ancients associated with pineal activation. In mystical texts, this serpent climbs the spine, striking the inner eye when it reaches the crown. This moment, symbolically, energetically, and psychologically, marks the activation of higher awareness. 4. The pineal gland and the geometry of the universe. One of the most secretive aspects of ancient teachings is the link between the pineal gland and sacred geometry. The ancients believed that when the pineal gland awakens, the mind becomes capable of perceiving the geometric architecture behind reality, patterns like the flower of life, the Fibonacci spiral, the Vesica Piscis, the golden ratio, planetary harmonics. Why geometry? Because geometry is structure. Geometry is order. Geometry is the language of creation. To perceive geometry within consciousness was thought to be the first stage of understanding the true nature of existence. Some mystery schools taught that the pineal gland acted as a decoder, translating cosmic geometry into human awareness. 5. The pineal gland as a lost birthright. One of the most powerful and rarely discussed esoteric assertions is that the pineal gland once played a greater role in human consciousness, one that has diminished over time. Some traditions claim it was once fully active, allowing humans to perceive subtle energies, communicate non-verbally, or understand the deeper harmonics of nature. Whether literal or metaphorical, the message is profound. The pineal gland represents a forgotten capacity, a dormant sense waiting to be reawakened. 6. The paradox of revelation. The deeper the ancients went in describing the pineal gland, the more paradoxical their teachings became. They taught that the pineal gland is a portal yet cannot be forced open. It is the organ of inner vision, yet cannot function without inner silence. It connects you to higher realms, yet demands grounding in the physical world. It is the simplest organ to access, yet the hardest to master. This paradox is intentional. It ensures that only those who approach with humility, discipline, and authenticity achieve the deeper states of awareness the ancients described. For all the mystique that surrounds the pineal gland in ancient traditions, its most profound teachings share a single truth. Knowledge means nothing without practice. The ancients were not interested in theory. They were interested in transformation. And every culture that revered the pineal gland left behind methods, disciplines, and rituals designed to awaken it. Here, we translate those ancient principles into modern, grounded practices that anyone can begin using today, without dogma, without superstition, and without the need for external teachers. 1. The art of intentional stillness. The first step in every ancient tradition, from the Egyptian adepts to the Vedic yogis, was stillness. Not silence of the world, but silence within. The pineal gland is highly sensitive to internal states. When the mind becomes quiet, the inner senses sharpen. The Egyptians called this entering the inner chamber, while early Christian mystics called it the prayer of the heart. Try this simple practice. Sit comfortably. Let your breath slow naturally. Bring your awareness to the space between your eyebrows. Not forcing, just observing. Feel the subtle pulse of stillness. Do this for 3 minutes a day. With consistency, the effects accumulate in ways that feel almost immediate. Increased clarity, heightened intuition, a deeper sense of presence. 2. Light discipline, the forgotten method. The ancients believed the pineal gland was a portal of light. Modern science confirms that the pineal is directly influenced by cycles of darkness and illumination. Ancient Egyptians practiced sunrise rituals. Hindus used Tritaka, the candle-gazing meditation. The Essenes meditated facing the first morning light. To apply their wisdom today, avoid bright screens at night. Spend 2 to 3 minutes outside at sunrise, allowing the soft light to enter your eyes without staring at the sun. Dim your surroundings 1 hour before bed. This simple rhythm harmonizes the pineal gland's natural cycles, restoring its sensitivity. 3. Symbolic activation. The ancients used symbols not as decoration, but as activation keys for the mind. The pineal gland is highly responsive to imagery, especially geometry. You can recreate this by meditating on shapes like circles, unity, triangles, illumination, spirals, inner expansion, the eye symbol, vision beyond vision. Let your mind drift into the symbol. The goal is not to understand it intellectually. It's to let it stir something ancient inside you. Symbolic meditation was one of the core practices in Egyptian temples, Greek mystery schools, and Tibetan monasteries. 4. The breath of alignment. Breathwork plays a central role in pineal-focused practices across cultures. Slow, deep breathing increases carbon dioxide levels in a way that stimulates the pineal gland. Ancient Taoists called this celestial breathing. Yogis called it prana alignment. Try this method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds, repeat for 3 to 5 minutes. This pattern calms the nervous system while shifting awareness inward, enhancing sensitivity to subtle perception. 5. The sacred act of inquiry. The pineal gland awakens when the mind becomes a seeker, not a collector of data, but a questioner of reality itself. Ask yourself daily, what am I not seeing? What assumption do I need to release? What deeper truth is trying to emerge? These questions activate the intuitive mind, the very faculty ancients associated with the pineal gland. 6. Purification, not of the body, but of the mind. People obsess over decalcifying the pineal gland, but the ancients were clear. Clarity comes from the purification of thought, emotion, and intention. This means releasing resentment, practicing honesty, cultivating compassion, letting go of self-limiting stories. When the emotional field becomes coherent, the inner senses awaken naturally. These practices are not quick fixes, they are pathways. Just as the ancients understood, awakening the pineal gland isn't about switching something on. It's about removing what keeps it silent. And the transformation begins with small, consistent steps. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth rises above all the fragments of history, myth, and lost wisdom we've explored. The ancients were not guessing when they spoke of the pineal gland as a portal, a key, a divine spark within the human being. They were pointing toward an inner capacity, one that modern society has forgotten, dismissed, or simply never learned to recognize. For the Egyptians, it was the eye of Horus, the organ of spiritual sight. For the Hindus, it was the Ajna chakra, the seat of intuition and inner knowing. For the Greeks, it was the gateway of the soul, as described by great philosophers who sensed that consciousness had depth science had yet to map. For mystics across continents and centuries, it was the silent compass guiding the seeker toward awakening. They all understood the same thing, that true perception does not begin with the eyes, but with awareness itself. The pineal gland, small, hidden, almost overlooked by anatomy, was seen as the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen, the material and the infinite. Not because it granted supernatural powers, but because it represents humanity's innate ability to sense truth, expand consciousness, and access inner wisdom beyond logic's reach. And now the question turns to you. What would your life look like if you reclaimed this forgotten inner portal? What would shift if you trusted the quiet voice within you a little more? How would your reality change if you allowed yourself to perceive, not just with thought, but with presence? The ancients left clues, symbols, teachings, and myths not to mystify us, but to remind us there is far more within you than you've been taught to believe. If this exploration awakens something in you, an intuition, a curiosity, a remembering, share it. Speak your thoughts in the comments. Let others walking the same path feel your presence. And if you want to continue diving into hidden knowledge, esoteric wisdom, and the mysteries of consciousness, then stay close. Many more revelations are waiting. Until then, trust your inner sight. The portal never closed, it only waits for you to open it.